Welcome to this episode of the Modern Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Giordani. I got my boy, Sed, here. Sed has he's been in the real estate industry for a long time as a realtor, and he's breaking into the wholesaling and flipping ground. I know he was doing a little bit of flipping, but he's one of the people who actually have come into my office that's actually done something, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of people who call me for advice or call me for things or want to come stop by and see, what my operation looks like. But he's literally the only person who now our team gets calls and we're competing against him on deals, which I'm okay with it, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, man, welcome, bro.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me, man.
Of course.
I didn't know that, by the way. That's a really cool thing. I think the one thing there, honor, right? Like honor and respect, like totally honor, respect you even having me on here. Your time is valuable, but I think that I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
That people come in and take your advice, but don't do anything with it. But that's also the industry we live in, man.
I mean, that's life, man. I think there's so many people who come in and want to do certain things, and they'll talk about things. I mean, we all have those friends, right? They're like, oh yeah, I want to go and start this business, but then they never start that business. Yeah. And they want to start going to the gym, and they never go to the gym.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you, dude, there's a lot of people in the you know them in the space who are like dabbling, but not to the level where I feel like you actually took action. And like I've never even competed against the people who have come into the office. And dude, I'm not exaggerating. There's been dozens, dozens of people who have come in, and I know I've been willing to share with like people who are in our area. And I think I was an open book with you when you walked in. I was like,
dude, you were totally straightforward with it, man.
Yeah. But super cool to see. I mean, I'm not hating on it. I love that. Like the hustle's real. So
I was actually like, I remember that deal, and I was like, shit, I've never had that happen. Because you don't want to step on toes, but the people that do it big, and do it real, like operate from a state of abundance. So I knew deep down inside that like you weren't butthurt by it. That was a cool deal. We are working on that deal is, dude. Yeah, third round of buyers on that one, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But still, man, I respect that, and you've always like been super straightforward. You answer all the calls and text messages, man. So
100%.
Solid, dude.
I'm being serious. Like I'm stoked that like someone taking like, I think for me to spend time with someone that actually does the thing that they're gonna do, like that means a lot, regardless of if it's in the same industry or not. Like the other people who have come in, like I just don't see them, or even like I know we're like competing against one deal, but you and I talk very fluidly about other deals that have happened. Whereas like with the other people, like I just don't see it at the same level. So I think it's pretty cool.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I receive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dude, talk to me about how you got into the industry.
Yeah, man. So I actually dove deep into flipping. Man, I gotta make this a short story. But I was a project manager for the government. Like I got out of the Navy. The Navy was my excuse when I was getting out of high school. I was like, I can either stay at home and smoke weed and just do nothing and just be that kid who was just going to community college so his parents didn't think he was a loser. And I did that for like 2 months maybe. Dropped out in like October. I'm like, school wasn't for me. I was too immature. Like that's not where my mind was on. Like I'm 18, dude. How the hell do I want to, like, how do I know what I want to do? Did the Navy, got out of the Navy. I loved that. But I knew it wasn't the end all be all. It was just kind of a way to mature. And then I went from the Navy to being a project manager for the Navy. And by all measures, like I was one of the most successful people. Like I was super young, just running these big meetings and stuff. That was above what I thought was my pay grade, but I stayed in a box. And I realized that at like 28. Took my parents' advice, got the safe job with the benefits, managed my own schedule. It was cool, but there was such a ceiling, right? And so I started networking, man. I knew I needed to branch out, but I didn't know like where to look. So I loved my friends, but I knew I had to branch out, or I knew I had to branch out. And so I told my job that I had a chiropractor appointment every Wednesday at 8:00. And I would go to a BNI group in downtown San Diego at 7:30. I'd literally change on the side of the road, out of my work clothes, brush my teeth downstairs, go up, and I'd just network. And what I didn't know is that room had like some of the biggest players in it. Sky Hoffman, Dan Fulkerson, like a lot of really, really good investors, like the creme de la creme of like the people in town in certain industries. So it was a blessing in disguise. I did that for 6 months. The idea was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm going to meet as many people as I possibly could. And I'm going to approach it with the mindset of serving them, and I'll figure out what I want to do. And then, I don't know, like 5 months in, this lady named Kimberly walked in, and we were like two of the people there first. And I was like, dude, something about her is just glowing. And so I figured out what she did. She was Derek Harm's partner at the time. This was probably like 2019. And so I just got under her wing, learned as much as I could, had another meeting with her, went out to see some properties, and then like 6 months later, I had a deal pop up on my desk from like a networking friend. Then I had that mindset. I was like, all right, you can either do this yourself and fuck it up, or you could pass a deal to her and learn how to do it the right way. So her and Derek were partners. I gave the deal to Derek. And I told him, I was like, I don't want a fee. I don't want anything in return. I just want to be on every email thread with the banks, with your team, with your designers, with your crew. Every time you go to the property, I want to be there with you. And I learned how to do it, right? Like he made 150 grand off the deal, but I had a decision if I thought short term and got like a 10K assignment fee, right? I might have had like an associate, but I served him, figured out how he did it, learned how to make the sauce, and then just repeated that down the road. So from there, I just started flipping on my own, but I had that structure set up from somebody who was doing it at a high level to know how to do it the right way.
A very similar story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how the same way that I got started too, was just partner in the deal, brought someone else. I didn't have the cash to do it, and watched the whole thing unfold for a couple of years, and just made like some side hustle money while I had the corporate job. And then now it's like all over with. So kudos to you to do that.
Yeah, no, it's so cool, man. I think people look at things from a short-term perspective, like how do you win now? And I'm just like, dude, I'm not in here for a sprint. Like this is going to be a marathon forever. And I could have just done one bad deal to start with and just knocked myself out of the game. Who knows how many people are doing that and have experienced that. But for me, it was like, I just approach life from like serving, right? And so how do you serve winners, and how do you serve people that are doing things at a high level? So when you say like, hey, you're the only one that's really taken me up on my advice and actually took action, I appreciate knowing that fact. It doesn't make me like feel super great about myself. Like I'm not riding on a high horse, but I think it's just confirmation on how I approach life. So
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of people who came, like I said, they've come in and they've taken my advice, but they just never did anything with it. And I think that's the difference between, like I think with anything in life, the action takers are people who are successful, people who are actually doing the thing that they talk about doing.
yeah.
Like you can't just talk about the shit that you want to do and just never do anything with it, because you'll never take it to the next step.
Yeah. And I think that's like why people that do and take action, it doesn't matter how much competition's out there. Like I think it's really easy to be successful.
It's not hard.
It's really not, man. And it's because like you go on the gram or you go on anything, like I deleted Facebook and Instagram. Like I literally maybe once every couple of weeks delete the app for like a week. And I'll just strictly like on my Mac if I have to post something, because it's such a highlight reel world. Everybody looks like they're winning, right?
Yeah.
But I know dudes that like are just super humble. They have like 100 followers and it's like one post of them holding a fish. They make like $3 million a year.
Right.
And then you have somebody who just got their license or living in a room with their parents, touring $40 million listings in La Jolla, and you think that they're like blowing it up in life. And I just think like it's all about action, man. It's all about intentional action. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Now, from when you, so after Derek, how long until you bought your deal, like your first deal yourself?
I think 2 months after that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, 3 months after that, it was in Oceanside. That was the first like direct to seller conversation that I had. I don't even know. I think this dude called me, and I'm like, I was so new to the game that like I had no idea how he like got a hold of me, but he called me. He was in Oceanside. Actually, it was a referral. Michael Haas, thank you. Yeah, he hit me up, and I used to just like hit up realtors. I was that guy, you know, like, hey, do you got any flips? And you know, finally, like Michael told me, like, hey, I think this guy's gonna sell his place. He just inherited it. So I closed it. That was in Oceanside. I think I ripped like 80K on that net. That was the first deal, dude. It was awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I had second position money lined up, took hard money in the first, literally did it with no money. So
that's incredible. I mean, that was saying again, similar story. Like,
yeah.
But mine, I ended up keeping both of mine, but they were like back to back simultaneously.
Yeah.
But I feel like once you get the high of doing it, like the the first time. Man, this isn't hard. This isn't complicated. Like you can continue to do it on a large scale. One thing that I was listening to or watching recently was talk about multifamily stuff because I think eventually just dabble in terms of like, buying some bigger units. And now, like for both of us, we know how to raise money. We know how to run a project. We know how to, figure in costs and acquisitions and all these things.
Yeah.
Why not do it on a bigger scale?
100%.
And so like starting to keep some of these big multi-units, because I think like over the next couple of years, we're going to see some turmoil in the multifamily commercial space.
Yeah, you're kind of already seeing it.
We're seeing it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to jump in on that space a little bit, like maybe just do one here or there.
I think it's a natural progression, right? And I think like that we should want, I'm sure people say this and you've heard it before, but be 2 inches wide and a mile deep, right? And I think people a lot of times are like a mile wide and 2 inches deep. They're doing like multiple things at once. And so your path is like exactly like what I talk about. Master where you're at now.
For sure.
And when you get to that point where you can do it in your sleep, essentially, you have everything in place, start growing, start thinking bigger. And I mean, you can get an 8-unit place, a 6-unit place, and you got one roof, you got one plumbing system. It's all, instead of having 6 properties and you got 6 different roofs, 6 different plumbing systems, you got one tax bill, all that kind of thing. It's condensed. And so I think ultimately I'll end up there. So
for sure.
Stoked. What do you think you're going to get into though?
I mean, right now, the goal is for the operation, like my operation, to get to a point where it's like a well-oiled machine. Yeah. And I've done a lot of learning lessons over the last 12 months since like with hiring and implementing the systems and the processes and all those things. And it's not, regardless of revenue, from my perspective, I'm still very much involved in the business. Yeah. So to me, it's not a well-oiled machine yet until I'm not as involved as what I am. So the goal first is to have it well-oiled. Yeah. And then at that point, I feel like I can diversify. And I see a lot of people say, oh, well, if you're a true entrepreneur, you can do multiple things at once. But to me, I want to master the one that makes me the most amount of money and diversify and other passive things and maybe bring a partner on the multifamily side of things that knows how to run it. Yeah. But where I can find the deals. Yeah. Because that's like our business. Like we're great at finding deals. Yeah. So if I can go find the deals and have someone else facilitate the deal, because they've done it before, like that to me is a win-win.
100%. It's leverage, man. Like we talk about a lot of leverage. And I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday. We talk about leverage a lot in terms of finances, right? But like leveraging people and their skill set and doing what you're really, really good at and supplementing what you're not or don't have the time to do is, I think it's a mindset shift that a lot of people that are successful have, right? It's like, because a person that tries to do everything, like you're doing such a disservice to yourself.
Dude, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, but it's like even in the business aspect, like right now I'm building out a team, but I'm not there yet, right? I'm probably like a month away. But I'm doing it all, right? And it's a pain in the ass. I don't want to do the $15 an hour, $10 an hour admin stuff, but there's people that hold on to control in every aspect, and it's such a scarcity mind to like just operate that way. So for you, it's kind of the same thing. You brought deals in a single family space. Why not do it in a multifamily space?
Yeah. I think let's talk about a little bit about you building up. Maybe this episode can be like how to start an operation like something like ours. And I'll share my insight because you're at kind of where I was at maybe like a year ago in terms of like growing phases and building processes and systems to be able to get to the revenue that you want to. And we've had like a few interesting conversations because when we first met, I was like, scale. And then we had a conversation a few weeks ago and I was like, man, I'm beat up. I'm exhausted. And you're like, fuck that. Let's scale.
Man, I've done kind of all phases of it. Like when it slowed down in 2022, I was like, all right, I'll get my license. And so because I was talking to a lot of people that wanted to sell their places, but they just wanted retail price. And I was too like naive at the time to know like, hey, there's something to exploit here. There's money to be made. Even if I didn't have my license, like I could have referred those and just had a referral partner and just, made 30% off everything that they sold, right? So I got my license and then I just started exploiting that. So I went through like all different phases. There's pretty unique perspective. I did the opposite of what most people do. Like most people become agents and then they want to become investors, right? Like I became an investor, got my license, kind of wear both hats, and now I know what I enjoy doing. And I built that up and I'm building it up now. So we can talk structure stuff. We can talk like mindset stuff. We can talk whatever you want.
Let's talk first. Like if someone was to get in, like they want to start a wholesaling and flipping company. Let's actually start wholesaling, because wholesaling is probably the easiest barrier of entry possible. Because really, in reality, you don't need to use your own money for flips and managing and things like that. I think for both of us, we do majority. I mean, I still definitely flip, and you still flip, but like the majority, I would say 80% of my business is wholesale right now. Yeah. And I'm sure yours is probably around the same.
Yeah.
So let's say someone has a budget of like $10,000 a month and they're just getting their feet wet. Let's say they've never even had a deal, or they've never even done a deal yet. How would you start them out?
Yeah. The first thing I would do is I would have them create an entity. I think anybody in real estate, like even agents, like if I was a broker, I'd tell agents, like, stop operating it like a hustle. Go get an entity, because there's so much tax advantages to that. And then when you have an entity, you have an LLC, you have the ability to obtain financing, right, and start building business credit. That's first and foremost. So I'd say spend, a couple $100 doing that. Then I would spend a couple $100 getting in the right room, getting around the right people that are doing it the right way. One of the coolest things, like I hit the start button on everything this year. So like, even though I've been doing it, so much of my stuff was a rat race grind that it was just a nightmare. It was ebbs and flows. It was like 1 month I'll rip like 60, 70K. The next 3 months, it's nothing, right?
Yeah, you unlearn a lot of the stuff that you
I did. I was that guy shooting sideways, you know what I mean? And like, the gun trainer is like, yo, no, you got to hold it like this.
Yeah.
So I had to unlearn and I restarted. And so one of the coolest things is I joined a group and I seen a Facebook ad and I said, yeah, I think you know what that group is. And it was like $150. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, what's $150? But I seen people that were doing it at a high level, and I understood the structure of like how I should be operating it. For so long, it was a hustle. So I spent $150, and I learned like a 4-week course on from sales to marketing to dispo to operations, right? And that was a big light bulb moment. And I'd be cautious of signing up online because a lot of these influencers were doing it 3 years ago, and now they talk a big game, but realistically, the only way they're surviving is off the students that they're teaching, and they're teaching shit that they were doing 3 years ago and not doing it today, so they don't know what applies. So you see that a lot, like influencers that are like, oh, dude, I'm doing this and I'm crushing it and pulling up in a Rari and a Porsche, and so many people are attracted to that flashy shit, but that's not like what makes people optimize. And for me to operate at a high level, I like to have close proximity to people that are currently doing it at a high level. So I'd sign up to really understand the structure and to build the foundation, to know at least what a solid foundation looks like. And then once you have the systems and the processes in place, you have a CRM, you know how everything's going to be funneled down the line, you have the right sales processes in place, now you start marketing. I think what a lot of people do is they start marketing before they're even ready for it. And now they're just fumbling the bag. And so when you have the right foundation, you build confidence, and you can articulate that confidence through phone calls, and you're not dropping the bag.
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people think first when you were talking about marketing first.
Yeah.
And marketing first, they think that there's some secret sauce to marketing.
No.
And I think before even marketing, it becomes your sales process.
100%.
Like your sales process should be your golden goose of the entire thing.
100%.
Because I think understanding scripting, your dialogue, that should be learned, and you have a good idea on scripts and things to go off of before you even press the button on turning on marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think because you're wasting your money, and there was a time a year ago where I was blowing a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the right sales process in place. And at the time, my acquisition person was taking the calls and setting the appointments for me. I'd go on the appointments, and then it was like no one would be there.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one would show up, and I'm just wasting my time going on all these appointments or like now we're virtual.
Yeah.
So figuring out kind of your sales process and making sure you have that, and then dial in your marketing, because marketing is what's going to bleed you, right? Like if you like the first two steps are extremely important. Your sales process, and then if you don't have your sales process, your marketing budget, $50K will go by real quick.
And that's why, like, I think we do wholesaling. Like, you have to have quick cash to conversion. You know, flipping is unrealized gains, like 4 months, 6 months down the road. But if you get popped by the city, now you're looking at 12 months and, you know, your budget's gone. And so, yeah, I was very outbound marketing heavy. And it was a nightmare, dude. Like, and I realized I had to restart. And so I hit the restart button like 2-3 months ago. I mean, I hit the restart button on my life, but in my business, I hit the restart button. It was just epic.
Yeah.
But I hit the restart button in my business, and I really turned it on probably in July. And by, you know, September, I had 6 deals. 3 of them were listings, 3 of them were wholesales. And so it's totally doable.
And what were you spending in marketing?
Before, when I was doing outbound?
No, when you got the 6 deals, like what was the months leading up to that?
All in all, like in the last 3 months, my marketing budget's probably like $16K.
That's not bad.
Not at all,
great.
dude. Not at all.
For 6 deals, if your average profit's $50K, I mean, everyone can do the math on that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So my like the spread between the 6 of them is like about 40K.
right.
And so you look at the ROI on that. I mean, it's substantial ROI, right? Like that's where I want to be.
Right.
And now with that, then you just parlay it into more marketing, more groups, more. Like I just paid somebody $3,000 to go into my CRM and literally set up all of my funnels, because I could. The easiest way would be go on ChatGPT and say, hey, make me a sales process funnels with automations and emails and texts and calls, whatever. But again, leveraging. I'd rather somebody who's an expert in follow-up go into my system, pay them $3,000. And of course I asked the question, hey, can I spread it out across, 6 months? So I spread it $500 a month, dude. There's no interest on it.
Yeah.
And so I spread it out, and I have somebody who's going to go in there and just going to refine the process. Because even when you have the foundation, like, when you start doing deals and you start doing marketing, you realize where you have gaps. And now you got to go and you got to go back and you got to adjust. And so, now parlaying that into like different streams of marketing channels is just how you grow. And I bring, hire on some help, a couple acquisitions, lead people.
And then from the marketing, then it's like KPIs, right? Making sure you're tracking the proper stuff, because that's like then becomes your lifeblood of the business. Like, hey, which of my 6 marketing channels are working, and what is my conversion on these leads? Like, for example, like PPL, what we realize is that 3 of our providers haven't been working, and I've had 5 on.
Yeah.
And so realizing that my conversion is down because I was tracking it on all PPL and not on individual sources.
Yeah.
And then when I went down to individual sources, one of them was the highest ROI, where I was spending $10,000 each on the other 3.
Dude, and that's like, what it's all about. And I actually just revisited that myself too. I'm only leveraging like 2 or 3. But I had to go down. I'm like, hey, am I spending more? Am I earning more in one channel? And I didn't, get to the science of where each one of those are in terms of like strict ROI and KPIs, but I did key performance indicators for anybody not knowing what a KPI is, right? So if you make 100 calls and you have 10 pickups or whatever, you're tracking. That's your key performance indicator. But yeah, I realized that at least the 2 that I'm using and that I'm like leaning on. All right, I got 2 deals here, I got 3 deals here, and they're both about the same spread. So for now they're working, but what I'm realizing is one is more so like just in the sticks, in the boonies, like not shit that I really want.
Right.
And then the other one is like more so just central San Diego, nice mom and pop neighborhoods, stuff that's easier to move at least.
Yeah.
So I'm still weighing one. Like I'm gonna like kind of see what the next month does, but realistically those metrics tell me that 15 leads, 12 to 15 leads, like that's conservative. I should have a deal in there. And so I have to assume that, all right, if it's X amount of money per lead, I need, 10 to 15 leads to generate a contract, then I know how much I should be spending. Most people shut off the faucet because they're uncomfortable and they're spending money and they're like, say, $5,000 deep on what should be a $7,500 a month budget.
Right.
And like, it's not working.
Yeah. One of the things too is it controls, like, let's say your goal is to do 5 deals a month. You can use industry standards to control your 5 deals a month, but our market's different. We're in a very expensive market, a very competitive market. So our edge is not what someone in the Midwest has, maybe for, let's say, 4,500 pieces of mail that need to be mailed out is going to get us 1 deal. Like mine is 11,000. So I need to send 11,000 mailers to get 1 deal.
Man, I thought it was like 9,700.
Yeah.
It's 11,000.
11,000. So like,
and it's what, 80 cents a piece, roughly? $1.
Yeah. So I'm trying to then gauge, hey, if I want to do X amount of deals per month, where does my spend need to line up? So like, that's what KPIs are so important for, because now you can figure out, hey, here's what I spend on PPL, here's what I spend on PPC, and here's what I spend on direct mail. As long as you have all those other processes set up in the beginning, your conversions will get better. So my conversion for direct mail was lower, but it got higher because our fallout or we had some acquisition issues.
Yeah.
And so then it started shrinking down, or it started increasing. And so now we're at almost 12,000. So it should be, when we met, it was at about 9,000. And then now it's at about 12.
Yeah. And it, because mail does so good. But see, that's the thing. You talk about starting. Like, I think that's intentional, just strategy, right? I wouldn't advise anybody to get right into mail, because say you're spending $11,000 a month and you multiply that by 12, like that's a massive annual budget. And if you don't have everything in place to support that, you're gonna just bankroll yourself.
Yeah.
So I like the PPL, PPC stuff. I stopped doing outbound. I don't call, and I will call in the future, but I don't do outbound. I was very text heavy. That's like a no-no now. I mean, there's mom and pop groups on Facebook that are trying to sue people. So I stay away from that. But that was like
a thing. Yeah.
I mean, dude, my first year in real estate, like that's what made my business.
100%.
I was like nominated Rising Star, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I don't go point to invisible things on TikTok, man. I just lead gen.
Yeah.
And I just talk to people. But what I realize is, like, if you're doing outbound, that lead to conversion is like 10 to 15 months right now. And so that's a heavy, heavy follow-up game. And I don't think that's the way you build business.
No. I think for someone with zero money trying to get locked into their first couple of deals, I don't know what else you can do other than that if you had no money, besides door knocking and then reaching out to realtors.
Well, that's where I was working a full-time job while I was still doing real estate.
Right.
I mean, I didn't quit my job until like a year and a half ago. And so that's why I was like, how do I stay productive and not let this die? How do I push the needle while I have a 9 to 5? And so I had a system, and I had like 20 phone numbers, and I'm just
banging
casting a net, man.
Yeah.
Just casting a net. And, the people that would raise their hand, that's who I would focus on.
Yeah. I think the conversion is a 1 in every 100 conversations. I think that's the conversion
that's true.
for cold calling. But that's from like a few months. That was from a while ago. I don't know if that's changed now, because I know a lot of people have dropped off of doing cold calls. I know I don't have any cold callers. I used to have like 6.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it at all.
I like the idea. How I did it was I texted a bunch of people. I would send out like 2,000 a day. And then say, 5% of those respond. I would focus on those 100 people, and I would call those. And, maybe half of them were just like a tenant bullshitting. Like, you don't always get the best data, but I would focus more. So my focus wasn't on just like, no. I was like, all right, these people in some form of capacity raise their hand. Let me hit them up. But still, like, they're so cold that it takes so long
To warm up.
Yeah, like I had one last year that was like cold text, call, locked it under contract in like a matter of a month. Maybe less than that, maybe like 2 weeks. But that was so rare that like that's why the ebbs and flows of business. And so I think it's effective, and there's a lot of resources out there that can do stuff for you if you're working a full-time job and want to scale yourself out of it. But to run a business, like, you have to have control, and you have to control your ad spend. You have to control your metrics. You have to control your conversions, and that's the only way to scale. So
let's talk about disposition a little bit, because I know right now, for me, I've had a troubling time moving deals.
Yeah.
It's been really challenging, and this is actually the first time in a long time where if we don't get the deal on the first offer and they go under contract with someone else, recently we've had people come back to us after being in escrow 3 different times, which is insane.
Yeah. It's so much of it is like problem solving, and I think the way you get paid is your ability to solve problems.
Yeah, for sure.
And the complexity of those problems that you solve, divided by the manner of time that you spend time like really figuring that out, is how you get paid. So if you solve bigger problems for people that have more money, you make more money.
Right.
But disposition has been a problem. I got one deal right now that I had a buyer who talked a big game. I sent him the assignment contract. I put a clause in my assignments that say, if EMD isn't submitted within 24 hours, I retain the right with no further approval from the assignee. It's my way to get the control back and maintain control, because ultimately we're in relationship with the seller.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't want to screw the seller over on, because somebody else just didn't step up to the plate like they said they were going to do. And so once we went back to the drawing board, I had another guy stepped up to the plate, sent him the assignment contract. He signed it. He submitted his EMD. And then on the day that we're supposed to close, he just backs out of it. He's like, hey, I can't do it. And the way that he did it was like super sketchy. And so now I got to figure out how to buy time. But in my contract, it says, like, if you submit it's a non-refundable EMD. Now, what I do with that, I don't know. Like, I don't want to screw the guy over, but at the same time, now I'm on my third trial, right? And so I thought it was a dead deal. Yesterday, it came back to life, and sent out the assignment. Seems all well. We'll see if I turn my phone when I take it off airplane mode, if the EMD has been wired in. But it's wild. And I think the election has a lot of people sketched out. I don't know if that's what it is, but a lot of people are paying attention to the election.
This is a weird election.
Yeah, it is. It's so weird, dude.
It's a really strange. This is the first time I'm not a big politic guy.
Yeah.
I actually just registered to vote 2 nights ago for the first time ever.
Do you have to register, or can you just go in person and vote?
I don't know. You have to register. You have to register to vote.
I voted before.
So I've never voted before.
Okay.
I've literally never voted ever. And this election,
you're okay. You don't even need to be a citizen to vote. To register. So
yeah, I know.
You're fine.
I know. And I think I've seen your comments and stuff, so I think we're on the same page. But this election is just weird. And I think it does have a lot of people going stir crazy. But I think also, regardless of election, which still has to do with our economy is weird. And I think it does have a lot of people shaky. But also, the people who are buying deals right now are newer investors. And I think a lot of the experienced investors aren't sitting on the sideline. The spreads that they need right now, like for you and I to take on a flip, the spreads need to be decent.
Yeah,
like
double-digit spreads for sure.
I'm not taking on sub 5% deals anymore.
Yeah.
Like I have one in North Park right now that I did, and I'm breaking even on it. And there's been a few where I'm going to potentially break even or lose money. And those were the deals that I was in escrow on 3 months ago that I think the market was still moving in a decent rate. We weren't getting crazy multiple offers, but things were still moving.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting hurt on it, which is okay. You win, you lose. This is why you do a lot of deals and why you wholesale and fill the pipeline and all that stuff. But now we're bringing in people who are mom and pop, who this may be their only $50,000 or $100,000 to buy one flip. And
it's you're very right. And it's babysitting. It's a lot of babysitting. Like, I have one that's supposed to close today in Escondido. And it's a couple partners who go to church together. And we're supposed to close today. And everything looks teed up, but it's a lot of hand-holding. And I see your face right now, and do you know why you see my face? Yeah, I do. It's a lot of hand-holding, but I go back, and this is why I appreciate, Derek just being a friend and like really just showing me the right way to do things.
Yeah.
I think like having the right proximity to the right people.
For sure.
And like knowing, most importantly, like who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people like they become somebody else, right? Like they hang out with a broker because he's doing a cool life. And next thing you know, they're trying to live their life. And I think we're all running our own race. For me, having Derek there was like operates with humility, operates with integrity, just a very solid dude. He's not in it for himself. And I think it's like a very selfless world when you give, like it's just reciprocated. And so he told me, always regret the deal you didn't do instead of the deal you did.
Yeah.
And the smart people understand that.
Yeah.
They know that I would rather take a loss or a missed opportunity on paper than take that opportunity because I need to. I mean, the only deal that I lost 5K on, and I don't even consider it a loss, but I didn't make money on, was a deal that I felt like I had to do. I was like getting stir crazy. I sold a deal, made a major rip on it in Bay Park, and I was like, I got to get a deal. Like, you get hungry for the illusion of like making money. And then you take something on that you probably shouldn't have taken on. And, I broke even on it or lost like 5K all in all. But my processes were so tight. We closed it and we put it back on market within 42 days. A total makeover of a 2,000 square foot place. It was dialed. And so that was awesome because we had, the market's contracting in like 2022. And I'm like, hey, every day is literal money because the market's just contracting. But from that point, the biggest lesson that I learned is never feel like you need to buy a deal. And when you start getting in that place where you're like, I need to get a deal closed, I need to do a flip, you take on risks that I think that you shouldn't assume. And so the smart people are sitting back and they're being like, when I'm sending them deals, dude, all of their ROIs are like 10, 11%. Like, they're hedging major risk in there. And even if you take it on now, you figure, it comes back on market in February, March, historically, that's when the market's at, approaching the peak. So, but you're speculating, right? So yeah, all of mine are like mom and pop dudes right now too.
Yeah. We have the reason why I was smiling is because we're assigning a deal to those people as well. And I'm going to have to hit up with a per diem charge because we're supposed to close on Friday. We've had them assigned for the last 21 days. And they're not signing escrow documents. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
They're not even answering escrow's phone calls. And unfortunately, the hard part of like with dealing with our business, and I think you're going to see this too, because I was talking to Alex a little bit about EMDs, is it's really hard to keep EMDs, right? Like, it's really hard to keep, one, because you can't close on the new escrow without getting them out because they are the assigned buyer.
Yeah.
So it has to be a legitimate cancellation. And they have to agree to release that deposit and then cancel. So if you don't sign it, then you can't technically sell it to the new buyer. So it makes it complicated to have to enforce that. So like automatic releases, Alex and I were kind of talking through it a little bit yesterday, having automatic release clauses in the assignment agreements with EMDs, because these people right now, and especially I was hearing horror stories with one of the biggest companies here.
Yeah.
And if they're going through it, people like us that can't, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on attorney fees and things like that, or just hold a deal in limbo. Like, to me, I don't have the balls to do that. I'm not going to do that to the seller.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, for me, I'd rather walk away and not take their EMD. But unfortunately, some of these cases, we only find one buyer for some of these weird properties that we have, or the buyers that we do have are significantly lower than where we need to get. So
100%. And that's the thing of, you have to have, I don't think it's a arena for the inexperienced. And I think that's why you've seen so much law come down. And, California hasn't really had that law come down, but I think almost half the states, if I'm not mistaken, have like imposed like wholesaling laws. And I'm glad they did, dude, because you have these dudes that know nothing and they go on, Jerry Norton or Pace Morby, and now they think they know what they're doing. They get a list, they call them, they put it under contract, they have no idea what they're doing. And all they do is just screw over the homeowner. And so when I don't approach it when I put a property under contract that I have the intention to wholesale. I don't approach it like, if it doesn't work out, screw it, like whatever, I walk away. I want to get it done because reputation matters. Like, I'm a believer in do what you say you're going to do.
100%. I agree with you.
Like, say, do, act. And so if I say something, I want to stand behind that. So I have protections and things that they agree to in the assignment contract but I don't know how that holds up. And so I've spoken to the escrow company that has this one, and they're like, no, they signed it. I don't need anything in return from you. If you say so, I can release it.
Yeah.
We'll see, man. I don't want to screw over anybody, but again, like, you say you're going to do something in the space.
The thing to me is that we're not screwing them over ultimately we're assigning them the contract to buy the seller's house. The seller is expecting to close on that property. Us having the relationship with the seller, if we're bringing in an investor to buy that property and they're paying our assignment fee, to me, we're doing a disservice to the seller by not enforcing the contract.
100%. You know,
So like to me, I don't care. Like, of course I want to have a relationship with the assigned buyers and do multiple deals with multiple investors. But the ones who I want to do deals with are the people who do deals and are going to commit to the
100%.
agreement that we talked about
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
follow the process.
Yeah, there's risk, right? And so you can vet them all you want. You can have conversations all you want. The really serious buyers that you know that you can trust on, and you don't even have to babysit them. They're there. They have their teams. Like the issue is they're typically substantially lower than where we want to be.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you got to take on risk, but that comes with the ability to solve problems. Like real estate business is all about solving problems. That's why in the morning when I wake up, like I got to throw on affirmations right away because my mind, the way it works, it's like, all right, what fires do I have to put out today? And so like when you just know how to navigate it and you know how to navigate like setbacks and you're not too emotionally invested into it, you're like, all right, what do I got to do now? You can operate, you can work through whatever it is that you work through.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, somebody called me, one of the owners, and he's like, hey, I have a bow here. I have a bow and arrow for you. I want to gift it to you because you did a really good job. And then the other guy on another deal, we're like 2.5 weeks, and I'm just like, buying time, and I'm letting him know. Now, there was a lot of stuff he didn't disclose about the property. But still, it's like, it's never a perfect world.
For sure.
And you just got to adapt, and you just got to solve problems, and you got to figure out who the next guy up is. And most importantly, you got to know when to cut bait and just roll off of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. It's hard because we're dealing with so many new people all the time, and our job is problem solving, 100% what it is. Sometimes it's like, just do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have to solve a problem that didn't need to be solved in the first place, especially like when it could have gone as smooth as possible and there wasn't any big deals or big issues that were going on. It could have been smooth. Like some people just make it more difficult than it needs to be, and that's what overcomplicates deals.
Yeah, man. It's not a jab at anybody. I feel like used car salesmen get a really shitty rep, but there's a lot of like used car salesman vibes in the real estate space, especially like in the investor space. There's always somebody that's like, hey, I'm an investor. Like you get the text messages all the time, but then they just don't do shit, and they just waste your time. They waste your energy, and so, again, I think the positive perspective in that is that dudes like us that do it the right way, that really like take interest in stepping up to the plate and being somebody who's reliable, there can be a sea of people. Like 80% of agents fail, 20% succeed. Like there's always going to be fish in the pond. But there's always opportunity to just stand yourself apart from those fish in the pond. So
100%, love that.
Yeah.
What's your goals coming into 2025?
Yeah, great, man. This year was a big reset year for me. And I love that I went through it, dude. I like, Joe Rogan says like so many people don't embrace they don't embrace like the challenge and of just being alone, right? And so like this year I had to like be alone for a long time because I wasn't happy with where like my life was. Like, last year I was nominated for Rising Star, but I wasn't excited of like where my life was, how I was feeling inside. So I stepped off the hamster wheel and I hit the restart button on everything. And it's great, dude, because I'm in the most abundant, like the best mental headspace that I've ever been, operating out of pure abundance. And so, the momentum that I have now, I should close out the year. Ironically, even though I took 6 months away from like really being in the work mindset, I'll close out the year and, doing more volume than I did last year, which is cool.
It's great.
Yeah. So now that I know like what I'm capable of and I have the foundation, I think where I'm at, like we've talked about it a little bit too, of do 10 deals a month, doing 20 deals a month. I want to average, I think that 5 to 8 deals a month is a sweet spot. And so like, that's where I want to get. So 60 to 75 deals next year is like where I think I'll have the infrastructure to support. But then again, like there's a trade-off. Like I don't want the trade-off to be to go against the things that like I believe in, right? Like if I can't enjoy time with my kids, if I can't commit to the commitments outside of work, like the groups that I'm involved in, the gratitude classes and the gratitude movement stuff that I'm doing. Like I'm involved in a lot of deeper things outside of work. It comes with a trade-off. Like for me, money isn't like the motivator for me.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to be extremely wealthy. I know that I am wealthy. So I want to be in that 60 to 75 deal range next year, but it has to come at a pace where like I have the conviction inside that you are still who you are and you're serving people just outside. Like money's a resource. So I'm not driven by money, I'm driven by impact. And so if I'm doing 60 deals a year, my impact's going to be much larger than it is right now. So that's ultimately like what my business goals are. But on a personal level, like I'm involved in like a junior high program through my church. I love like those kids, dude. Like they're awesome. I was like a moron when I was 6th to 8th grade. So I want to continue that.
Yeah.
Like I'm involved in a group called the Gratitude Movement, which there's sunglasses that I showed you earlier. There's sunglasses and then there's a box. So a box comes with 2 pairs of glasses, a journal, and some cool wristbands. And with every glasses purchase, there's a journal that's gifted to a kid in high school for free who's fighting anxiety and depression. And it was like started by my friend Daniel, whose dad was took his life to suicide. And so now that's like an impact, right? So my goals ultimately are to create like massive wealth. I'd like to be in like the, $500,000 to $750,000 next year in volume. But I want my impact to be massive, dude. Like I'm a giver. And so I want to be out and actually like serving people and like doing something cool with what I'm doing.
Love that. 75 deals, bro. You're going to be at way more than that.
I know.
I was going to say like
I know.
75 deals is more of like 4 million in revenue.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm looking at the ad spend to get to that too. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it would be gross, not net.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah. But if you're running at like a 40% profit margin or something like that, you should be fine.
Yeah. But some of those, like, some of those are like 10K rips. Some of them are break even. And so.
Yeah. But then you got like the 200K rips.
I know.
So,
I know. Yeah. Yeah, dude.
I just got a wire right now.
Yeah, man. It's like one of the coolest feelings. I remember that though. And the coolest thing that I experienced when I sold that Flip and Bay Park, it's the most amount of money I ever made in my life. Davey sold it. And I remember calling him, like 236K hit my account. Dude, that was like 2.5 years.
Yeah, for sure.
At my job.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded, like I'm in and off. Dude, I remember stepping out of the office at work where like the majority of people are making like 80 grand, 90 grand. And I step out of the office and I call Matt and I'm like, dude, I'm looking at it, but like, I was like, I thought it'd feel different, dude.
Dude, it feels like nothing.
It really.
It's not like when you're talking about like money and stuff like that. Like, dude, it's one of those things where you can't. I know you like what you were saying in regards to like feeling of like making more of an impact than anything else. I'm numbed when it comes to the feeling of money, of like what comes in. Like I think other people get excited, and I did like last year and the year before. I made some big rips.
Yeah.
Where it was exciting, but now like I mean this was a month before last, and so like it's every single month having the consistency like that is like crazy, but it doesn't change who I am.
Yeah.
But also I don't ever think of the money, which is the weirdest part. You know, it's like it's a weird thing that I don't know how to explain it. My wife looks at it and she's like, why am I working? And I'm like, you chose to do that.
Man, it's cool because money is, they say money's the root of all evil, but it's not. Like money's a tool, it's a resource. If I go to Home Depot and buy a hammer and I choose to build a house with that, I'm a carpenter. But if I buy that same hammer and I kill somebody, I'm a murderer, right? It's a tool. And what you choose to do with that tool is the impact that you have. And so like, does money have you or do you have money? And so there's like a spiritual component to money. People chase it all their life. And I did, dude. I was like a destination guy. Like when I get this, I'll be this. When I get this, I'll relax. That was a big reason I had to hit the reset, because I was always down the road in the future. Or I would set a goal and I'd be like, that's my 6-month goal. And I'd get tunnel visioned on it. And then at like 3-4 months, I know that goal is inevitable, that I'm gonna hit it, to where now I'm setting another goal. So 2 months later, when I actually hit that goal, it means nothing to me.
Yep.
Because I'm focused on the next thing. So I was never present because I was just chasing like I was like the dog on the treadmill with like a hot dog in his mouth. Yep. And a lot of people operate that way.
I did too. I mean, dude, it was like the feeling of buying rentals. I thought I was going to feel some type of way about it felt like nothing. Watches and car, like whatever it was never enough. Like you don't feel. I bought this watch, and this was like my holy grail watch. It wasn't, but it was. And I literally had it in the box for 2 weeks, sitting in my nightstand the day I bought it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even wear it. Like, why did I just go and spend $45,000 on a watch that I'm not going to even wear?
Dude.
And what is the meaning behind it? And then my house got broken into, and I'm like, why do I have this shit? And all they stole was all the boxes of my watches. And I'm like, I have this, and now it's like this thing that I look at. And then there was a time earlier this year where I was running low on cash, and then I looked at it, I was like, why did I take that cash out of the business when I can get a 3 to 5x ROI? You know, so it's like, it's one of those things where you start like looking at things from a different perspective. And now for me, and I've talked about this so many times, is like building this, having employees and giving back and trying to help other people succeed and be successful. Like that's where I'm having like the excitement. I think you'll get there too. Like with, I mean, you're there in terms of success, but like having employees and being able to provide to them and giving back, especially with people like that have never made $100,000, and you're like, man, 100,000 isn't a big deal.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. I think you have to have the experience of having money. And I think when you go through like trials, like sometimes like you just have to be an idiot. Like to me, I you know, like you just have to. I'm not calling you an idiot, by the way.
I felt like an idiot.
No, I'm like, you just see it, the hood rich stuff. Like, you know, I call it like the Rent-A-Center vibes. Like it's just like you got the spinners on the car, and like it's just, to me, like I ripped 230. This is like the watch that I gifted myself. It's like $312. Like this is a Target fit, dude. Like I used to like want the fancy stuff, but at least I'm grateful for the experience that I was never in it for the money. But then again, when you have money, you realize like that you're financially illiterate at times, and you're like, all right, why am I doing stupid stuff? And so I think the very successful people, like they don't, like there's people that have $50 million in their checking account because they don't know where to place the money. Like I don't know where else to put it.
That's why my wife. So I started transferring money into her account. I was like, let's make a joint account, and I'll be on your account, and I'm just gonna every like paycheck I get, I'm just gonna wire you money, like a percentage of it, because she hoards cash. Like she's scared of investing in the stock market. Like she doesn't look at rentals the same as what I look at rentals or as debt, and so she'll just stack cash and hoard it, and you know she makes a very nominal amount of money. And she still saves a shitload. And I'm like, I'm impressed. Like, maybe you should control all of our spending.
You don't even have a box spring. It's just like money, and your mattress is sitting on top of it like grandma was back in the 60s.
I feel like me, I'm so risk adverse. I talk to my dad about this all the time. He's like, you're a riverboat gambler because you invest in real estate. He's in real estate, which is kind of funny. And I'm like, I just believe so much in myself that I'm willing to invest every single dollar into myself because I know I'll win.
What got you to that point?
Of the believing in myself?
I
don't know, success, I'm sure. Like I'm sure once you get to a level that you've done the things that you've said you're going to do and that you believe in yourself. So I think confidence can exude that, and then literally just doing the thing. Yeah,
man. I'm with you. It's a cool feeling. Like you just know when you have like wind in your sails.
There's an it factor. Like you either have it or you don't.
100%.
In my opinion, I think you can learn it.
No,
but like
there's an it factor. 100% there's an it factor. Like skills can be taught, but so they say like, I think there's this book, Buy Back Your Time. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Great book. I think they said like 80% of entrepreneurs had a chaotic upbringing. I think that's the stat, like 80%. And I'm not saying like it's not shame towards anybody who, like we all have, like nobody had a perfect home, right? But the kids that had a chaotic upbringing, they had to learn skills that like other kids just didn't have to do. They had to figure out how to, damn, I don't have a ride. Like, you know, my mom didn't pick me up from practice. How do I get home? Or, you know, how do I put a microwave meal in the oven or in the microwave and feed like my sisters and us? Like things that like typical kids don't have to deal with. And so you learn how to just get shit done. And there is a big piece in any kind of line of business. It's like, what is your ability to just adapt and just get it done? And a lot of people freeze. And I think a lot of people operate with scarcity, and they chase that money, and that hot dog on a stick is actually like $100 bill or something, and they're just always chasing it. And so when you believe in yourself, dude, and you're taking right action, you know, what do they say? Like luck is the intersection of preparedness and opportunity. And you just know how to just like take advantage of that opportunity because you're prepared.
When I was, I had trauma when I was younger, but it was interesting before I got engaged. I've talked about this before too. When you're working for yourself, like, and it's only you that has to survive, I would have these like 3-month stints where I would have fallouts for myself, and I'd go into a depression, and I would almost freeze. Like I didn't know what to do. And I've gotten into that place a couple of times over the last couple of years. But I knew I couldn't, because I was engaged or married or have employees or had other people that looked to me to grow. And I couldn't freeze, and I had to like push through those walls. But I think pushing through those walls helps you grow. You
have to experience that 100%. I appreciate you sharing that, by the way, man. I'm a huge dude in vulnerability and like authenticity. Like, so when people like open up, I think like we need more of it. Like I remember having a buddy, it was a work thing. We're not even like tight. But his voice was weird. And I was like, hey bro, like my bad. I was supposed to follow up with you 2 days ago, but I was in that mood. I was in like I fucking don't want to do this, dude. I'm like, I want to get off the wheel. And so I was like, are you mad that I didn't like, sorry if I didn't call you when I said I would. He's like, no, man, it's just other stuff. Now this is a high volume dude. I mean, 7-figure guy. Like we don't know each other that much, but like 30 minutes on the phone and he's just spilling his whole life, dude. And he's like so unfulfilled inside. And I think that it was awesome. He's like, dude, I can't have these conversations with like my best friends. Like, thank you for just like being real. And I realized a lot of that, like a lot of, as I've kind of gone through what I've gone through this year of hitting the reset in my life and really operating out of abundance and knowing what abundance, like you can't operate out of abundance and really know what it means until you're in a state where you have nothing to rely on. And when you have nothing to rely on, but you're still operating in gratitude and faith and like just abundance, like that's when you experience real abundance. Because if you need something to feel abundant, then you're not abundant, right? Like abundance isn't about hoarding things and having to touch them. It's an experience. It's a feeling. It's like a state of being, a frequency that you're on. So, but what creates that is going through those struggles. It's going through those like looking in the mirror moments where you don't like the dude looking back at you. It goes through like those trials where you're in the car and you're like, all right, dude, I'm going to pull over down the road for like 30 minutes and just like ball it out if I have to, just so my wife and my whoever doesn't experience this, because I don't want to bring this state in. As a man, like I think we're inherently responsible for dealing with so much shit, but not letting it affect the people around us. Like I think that is an innate quality for men. It's like it's your job to be a secure provider. And it weighs on a lot of people. There's a lot of people that handle that in a toxic way. But it also has the ability, if you harness it right, to serve the people around you and just be totally, totally just like an awesome dude at the end of it. Because you have people that rely on you and you're going through like some deep inner like emotional, spiritual battles and you just choose to go anyways.
Yeah. Drinking used to be part of that battle where I would start drinking or I'd, go get fucked up because I wanted to numb the pain of all of that shit. And recently even if it's like a glass of wine at night, like as I've gotten older, I mean, that was years ago, but like as I've gotten older, like I would still go home and I'd be like, man, today was crazy. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to have a glass of wine or two. And now I won't even do it. Like I'll force myself to go through how I'm feeling versus just like going and having a drink. Even though, of course, I love drink. Like I love going to happy hour with the wife and having some beers and stuff like that, like all good. But I think dealing with the actual pain instead of using like the booze or substance for other people as a clutch is worse. And it's interesting too, because like I don't go home. I know a lot of people can go home and complain to their wife about their day, because I know like my wife can complain about her day. And a lot of times I try to be the man of the household and not complain. And not put that like something can bother me or affect me. And recently I have been more vulnerable and open to the feelings of that. And her and I were talking the other day, there was a time what I was just saying, like I was feeling depressed. And we were on a walk the other day and I was like, all those times that I was feeling depressed, I think I was just telling myself I was depressed and then continually repeating it in my head. And then it was the music that I was listening to
100%,
and the thoughts that I was saying at the gym, and then the frustrations that I would have. And all I would think about would be negative outcomes versus positive outcomes. And it was me just having negative self-talk.
It's all it's all programming, dude. Like I mean, I don't, it's all programming, dude. And because your thoughts dictate your beliefs dictate your actions dictate your results. And people don't realize subconsciously they're listening to like I don't know the last, like I'll throw on Kanye and like Kanye is my boy. Um, but like I think about like I was like 12 listening to Tupac and Biggie and Eminem and I mean that was like, you know, the 90s, man, that was it. But there's all of these things that we're taking on. And I was talking to this dude the other day, and he's like a political guy that just started venting to me about some stuff, and it was weird. But I challenged him on something. I'm like, you say this exists. How often do you experience it in like your actual life? And he's like, you know, I don't. And I was like, see, most people believe that like their thoughts are their thoughts, but just because it's in your mind, it's not yours. Like, it's influenced somewhere. It's influenced through the music you listen to. It's influenced like, you know, what you're consuming. And it's just like our bodies, bro. Like if we go and eat burgers for a month straight, we're gonna feel like shit. But your diet is also what you listen to. It's the people around you. And my biggest breakthrough this year was when I stopped saying yes to things that I knew weren't serving me. Like I was saying yes to a lot of things that I was just like I felt like I needed to be at, or I felt like I was obligated to attend. And when I got out of that and I didn't care, like I'm not codependent on people. I don't need the external validation. Like I don't need shit. It's awesome. Like I'm cool with me. I'm cool with my faith. That's it. Like that's literally all I need because I was in that state this year where I had nothing to fall back on and I put myself through the trenches, but that feeling that you get on the other side of it is a feeling that like can't be created anywhere else.
For sure.
And it's unlimited belief and faith, man.
You said that you stopped doing certain things and started saying no to a lot more, and I totally resonate with that. I was going to a lot and looking for outside what would you say, outside not reassurance but outside
Like you need validation. Yeah.
I was looking for outside validation, and I was going to a lot of the networking events and things because I left title and like this business is growing and I'm doing well and I feel like I'm at the top of the world. And so I just wanted to be at all these networking events. But then you go to these networking events and you're like, it's taking me away from being home with my wife or like at home or going out with my friends or being around the people that I truly love and care about versus, you know, these external factors of like, I'm not going to go to a networking event and get a deal.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If there has to be a trade-off. And I was the same way. I think like we forget how just fresh out of COVID we were. Like the reason COVID spiked and like the reason like depression and anxiety spiked in COVID is because all the shit that was feeding people's like self-worth was removed, right? Like they were at home with the people that they were probably neglecting or by themselves. And people don't know how to be by themselves. So you've seen depression, anxiety, like the influencers weren't able to take cool little videos of them boarding a plane. They were at home in the four walls that they were just escaping from every single day. And I think like people, like to me, I adapted with that. I realized what was important, but I was going to things and I'm like, dude, it's just people that are there to take Instagram videos. And I'm not saying great networking events don't exist, but I started to be very, very selective. And I was like, is it adding value? Like if I divide my hourly rate, I'm like right around like $350 an hour is what my time value should be. And so if I go spend 3 hours on something, like I drive an hour, I attend a networking event, I have drinks, I bullshit afterwards, I drive home for another 45 minutes, I just spent $1,000. And what did that $1,000 investment do? It did nothing. It drained me. I just had, hey, how you doing? What do you do? Okay, cool. Here's my card. Probably never going to call you. And relationships are important, but I think the order of operations is off for a lot of people. Like I think the people have the order of operation is become an influencer on Instagram, go to a bunch of networking events, look like you're doing something productive.
Sure.
Whereas do something productive, do what matters, and be selective with who you engage with and how you spend your time.
I went to a networking event recently. It wasn't recently. It was like probably, well, now it's probably 6 months ago now. But I went with two of my buddies. Both my best friend works at New Venture, and then my other buddy who works at Lawyers. And I was like, let's all go meet up for a drink and go to this event. And like, there's two events. Let's go to both. And we went, and then we went to dinner afterwards. And I'm like, why the fuck didn't we just go to dinner together?
Yeah.
like, why did we need to go to the two events that meant nothing to all three of us? Like, we were not getting business. It wasn't for business purposes. Like, we were just going to go
Yeah.
for a purpose for us three to meet up. But
Yeah.
instead, like, we should have just gone to happy hour or gone to dinner with just us and enjoyed our time together instead of having to do something that was meaningless.
Yeah.
And it was just like that day was the realization where I got in the car and I called Whitney and I'm like, I explained it to her. And then it's like people are taking away from, like, when we're talking at those networking events, if they know you or if they know me and they're seeing what you're doing, they're asking for advice and you're giving it to them. It takes away from like you want to help people, but at the same time, you don't want to also take away like yourself. I don't know how to explain it.
It should be a reciprocal exchange.
Yeah.
And dude, I agree, man. And like, I think a big thing for me is that I've realized, like, the more I've gotten to like really know myself and like trust myself, and like I met myself this year, dude, and it was epic. The more I was able to see through a lens that's just kind of, you can't ignore. And I seen how transactional so much shit is. Like, there's not a lot of people that are actually interested in serving or getting to know you. That's like, what can I get from you? Oh, that, they come with their list. I got to talk to these 3 people. There's always like a self-serving purpose behind it. And I just, dude, I did it. Like, you have to go through it. I did it. And it was just a turn off for me. And I think people have the fear of not being relevant. So they feel like they have to just continue. I need to be relevant. I need to be relevant. I need to be relevant. Well, if you're taking action, you're going to be impossible to ignore.
Do you feel like that a lot of like how you feel when you're, I think intent to go into those events to try to move the needle in a business where like you and I may not look at it like from a business sense going to those networking events anymore because it doesn't bring value to us. But because you've talked a lot about serving, and I know, religion and being like Christianity, your faith and those things. Do you feel like a lot of that has to do with why it's different for you now?
Great question, man. I think so. And I think it's because the community that I'm in now, the people that I'm surrounded with by now are incredible people.
Right.
Like incredible dudes. And, a lot of it is through my faith, but these are dudes that are massive people in the marketplace. They're great husbands. They're great dads. They're great friends. They're massive givers. Like, they own massive companies. Like, people think like Christian stuff. It's like, oh God, no, it's such a cool community, man. And now that I know what like real relationship, real community, real support looks like, I have perspective to know what's bullshit. And now that I have that like discernment, I'm just like, I don't care to be in communities just to be a part of those communities.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not serving me, if it's not helping me become a better person, because you only meet yourself by the level of development that you're at. Like, you only know yourself from what you've developed. And so I want to constantly be developing. It's like when Matthew McConaughey has that one quote, like, who's your hero? And he's like, oh, like, give me 2 weeks, I'll let you know. And the guy meets him 2 weeks later. He's like, hey, have you met your hero yet? He's like, no, man, it's me in 10 years. Like, I'm never going to meet my hero because I'm always going to be chasing him.
Right.
And so I always want to be chasing this massively impactful, abundant dude that I don't even know exists yet 10 years down the road because I'm constantly growing myself.
Yeah. I love that. I think a lot of people go to those things not wanting to serve others, but serving themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I asked that, is because I could have been in that place 5 years ago where I was going to those events to not serve others, but to serve myself, to try to, move the needle in my corporate job at the time, or to get business from other people. Now, if I was to go to those things, like, I'm not looking for anything from anyone. Like, I don't need anything anymore, and where I think you get to a place where now you're at a different level where you can serve other people. But 5 years ago, I don't know that I could have served anyone else.
I think that's even limited because there's probably somebody listening right now who feels like they don't have anything to give. But in my advice for anybody listening is time expands where value is provided. So for instance, like, so many people meet people that they want to be inspired by and want to like be mentored by. Like with Derek, dude, I was literally in between my day job. I gave him a call. I was like, what properties do you have right now? And I was like, all right, I'll project manage them for you. I'll go to the properties. I'll send you videos. I'll let you know what's going on with the place. Like, just let me know where it should be. Like, I did that, which took a big responsibility off his piece. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew that he would help me out along the way. And so there's always a way that you can serve. Like, I mean, it's just how I approach life. Like the space that I went into, that B&I group, I was like, how do I bring value to these people? Like, how do I help you?
Right.
And so when I meet somebody that I want to get to know, it's from the mindset of like, what can I take off your plate that will help you?
See, I think I was good at that. Like when we're talking about like where I'm at today, I think I was good at that. Like when it was a one-on-one thing.
Yeah.
But when it was in a group setting or like we were talking about events, like it's harder doing that.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And I was always like, what's weird, I don't know about you, but I'm an introvert.
Yeah. I've become an introvert. I was a massive extrovert. Yeah.
So I've always been an introvert, but I'm an introvert extrovert. So I can be extroverted when it comes to conversations like this, if it's one-on-one, if it's a small, intimate group. I've never loved having like big group of friends. I've always, my high school was very small. We had a small group of friends. I was never the one that was super outspoken or anything like that.
Yeah.
And even now, like all my friends would probably say that I'm extroverted, but I am truly an introvert at heart. Even though I can have conversations with anyone, but it would be more conversations one-on-one or like if I'm in a bar, I can talk to, like we go to the restaurant all the time and I'm like, I make friends with all the bartenders or all the servers, you know, so anytime we go back to the same restaurant, which I do because I'm a creature of habit, I've made friends with them.
Yeah.
And then the service is better, but that's also experience.
Yeah.
And so when I go to networking events, it actually exhausts me because my introvert kicks in. I'm like, fight or flight. I'm like, get me out of here.
Yeah, man. I relate to that a lot. It's like one of those things where I try to figure out every day, like where there's a saying, you're right where you're meant to be. Like everybody, like you're right. Like I'm right where I'm meant to be. So are you, like in your journey and like in this room. And so everywhere that I'm at, I'm like, I'm right where I want to be. And I try to find the reason why. And typically that's because there's an engagement that needs to take place. Like there's a reason I'm there. And I try to seek that out. And not everybody's going to be like this warm dude, but I believe like when you just kind of put yourself out there and you're authentic, like, hey, what's going on, man? How are you? I'm Josh. I think people receive and kind of open up and you'll just know, like you'll know the window.
For sure.
You know? And so don't like if somebody doesn't want to talk, you're like, hey, how are you? But you'll know. And I just, but I'm very much with you. I used to be an extrovert because I needed to get my cup filled by other people. Now I'm just like, I'm cool, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when I go places, I'm like, all right, well, why am I here? And it's typically like who needs me, like who needs me here, and who can I benefit? And I want to benefit and bring value to people that I'm inspired by.
Love that. Yeah, it's cool. Any closing thoughts? I feel like we talked some good shit at the end.
We did talk some good shit today.
Yeah.
We just wung it, man. I love it. No, I think you know, your external world is a reflection of your internal world. And so if you're using your external world to run away from your internal world, you're always going to be running. And at the beginning of this year, like taking that time off of work and really getting off the hamster wheel was the craziest shit that I've ever experienced in my life. But it developed a dude who really, really operates in true abundance. And knowing that I made it through this year and like I took 5 months off to rebuild and reset, which is a lot of things that people would never do. To anybody who feels exhausted by just the rat race, by the ups and downs, you know, when I look 18, you know, it's been 17 years in my adult life, right? I took half of 1 year to really reset, and that sets the momentum and the stage for the rest of my life. And so don't avoid what needs to be done, because when you meet yourself, you operate. Like my business is thriving because I've met myself. So I operate out of abundance. If the call doesn't work, if I'm not chasing the money, when you chase that deal, the people can sniff it out. The people that are around you can sniff out the scarcity.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. Your external world is a reflection of your internal world.
I love that, bro. That was great. Great time chatting with you
Yeah,
today.
man.
Thanks for everyone for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow Sed. He'll be in the description. Appreciate you guys and see you guys on the next video.
Take care, guys.